On the morning of April 20, 1999, Columbine High School in the quiet suburbs of Littleton, Colorado, seemed like any other typical day. Students arrived early, chatting about classes, weekend plans, and the approaching spring break. No one could have imagined that within hours, this peaceful scene would shatter forever. Behind the calm exterior, two students, Harris and Dylan Klebold, were preparing for a violent attack that would change the nation's history. Eric was 18, Dylan just 17. Both seniors at Columbine. They were known to some as quiet, withdrawn, even troubled, but the full depth of their anger and planning was hidden from most. Over months, they meticulously crafted a plan not only to carry out a shooting but also to detonate homemade bombs designed to kill hundreds. Their notebooks and journals revealed a chilling ambition to unleash what they called a day of retribution against their school and anyone inside it. Despite warning signs, many around them failed to grasp the impending danger. Friends described Eric and Dylan as distant but never imagined they could commit such brutality. School counselors and staff were unaware of the scale of their hatred and the precise threat they posed. The young men's rage was a storm brewing quietly beneath the surface. On that fateful morning, Eric and Dylan arrived armed with guns, ammunition, and bomb-making materials hidden in backpacks. They moved through the school hallways with cold determination. Their goal was clear: to inflict maximum carnage and destruction. As the first shots rang out, confusion and panic spread like wildfire. Students screamed and scrambled for cover, but many had nowhere to run. The initial explosions intended to cause mass casualties failed to detonate properly, but the shooting that followed was merciless. Eric and Dylan fired relentlessly, targeting classmates, teachers, anyone who crossed their path. The 49 minutes of terror left 12 students and a teacher dead, with many more injured. The violence was indiscriminate and devastating. Within the school's library, where the two attackers eventually took their own lives, the scene was a haunting tableau of death and despair. 10 bodies lay lifeless, including Eric and Dylan's, a grim testament to the horror that had unfolded. Outside, 2 more students had died trying to escape the nightmare inside. The immediate aftermath was chaos. Emergency responders flooded the scene. Parents desperately searched for their children, and the community grappled with disbelief. Columbine was no longer just a school. It had become a symbol of tragedy, loss, and the fragility of safety. What began as an ordinary day ended as the deadliest high school shooting in American history at that time, shaking the nation to its core. As news spread, questions flooded in. How could this happen? What drove Eric and Dylan to such extremes? And could this nightmare have been prevented? The answers were complicated and painful, revealing deep wounds in the school system, mental health awareness, and gun control policies. The story of Columbine was only beginning. Its echoes would spark fierce debate over gun laws, school security, and the dark undercurrents of youth violence in America. But for the families and survivors, the pain was immediate and personal, a loss that could never be undone. The calm that morning was shattered forever, leaving scars on a community and a nation still trying to understand the tragedy's full impact. The terror at Columbine High School unfolded over 49 harrowing minutes, each one marked by chaos, fear, and unimaginable violence. As the clock ticked, Harris and Dylan Klebold moved methodically through the school, executing the plan they had painstakingly crafted. The two teenagers were not just armed with firearms. They had also built homemade bombs designed to inflict mass casualties, revealing the full scope of their deadly intentions. Their initial goal had been to detonate powerful explosives in crowded areas of the school, causing mass destruction before unleashing their shooting spree. But many of the bombs failed to detonate as planned, thanks to faulty construction or mistakes in the triggers. Still, the explosions that did occur were enough to ignite panic and confusion, giving Eric and Dylan an opening to begin shooting. Armed with multiple guns, including shotguns and semi-automatic rifles, they began firing indiscriminately. Their first victims were students in the school parking lot and hallways. The sound of gunfire echoed through the building, punctuated by screams and cries for help. Students fled wherever they could, some diving into classrooms, others running outside, desperate to escape the violence. Teachers and staff sprang into action, locking doors and barricading classrooms. Many tried to protect their students by remaining calm and urging silence. But the fear was overwhelming. The shooters moved with terrifying purpose, heading toward the library, where dozens of students had gathered during a study period. It was there that the majority of the shooting took place. Inside the library, Eric and Dylan opened fire on the students and a teacher. The room became a scene of chaos and devastation as bullets tore through the silence. 12 people would ultimately lose their lives here, including a beloved teacher who had tried to shield her students. Others were wounded but survived by hiding under tables or fleeing to safer corners. Outside the school, the sound of sirens grew louder as police and emergency responders arrived. However, the situation was complex. The first responders were faced with an active shooter scenario unlike anything they had trained for. Columbine was not a typical emergency. It was a calculated assault with the possibility of more bombs planted throughout the school. The police quickly established a perimeter and tried to coordinate evacuations, but confusion reigned. Some units hesitated, unsure whether to enter immediately or wait for backup. This delay, later scrutinized, was partly due to concerns over the bombs that might still detonate and the unprecedented nature of the attack. Inside the library, Harris and Dylan Klebold's rampage ended with their own deaths. Whether they intended to survive or planned to die from the start was a subject of investigation. Their bodies were found among the victims, a final, grim punctuation to the massacre. By the time the shooting stopped, 12 students and 1 teacher were dead. 2 more students had died outside the school while trying to escape, and at least 20 others were injured. The bloodshed left the community devastated, struggling to comprehend the scale of the horror. The Columbine shooting was not only the deadliest high school shooting in the United States up to that point, it was also a chilling example of how carefully planned violence could wreak unimaginable havoc in places once considered safe. It exposed vulnerabilities in school security, emergency response protocols, and the deep social issues that had gone unaddressed. As the sun set on that tragic day, the nation was left with a new reality, one where schools could no longer be assumed safe havens and where the horrors of such attacks would become a recurring nightmare. The 4 to 9 minutes at Columbine were etched into the collective memory as a warning, a call for change, and a somber reflection on the price of violence. In the wake of the Columbine massacre, the community was engulfed in a storm of grief, shock, and disbelief. Families mourned the loss of children who had simply gone to school that day, hoping to learn and grow, never expecting to face such horror. The survivors carried invisible wounds, trauma that would haunt them for years, etched into their memories in vivid detail. Emergency responders, firefighters, police officers, and medical personnel rushed to the scene, working tirelessly to treat the wounded and recover the dead. The school was transformed from a place of learning into a scene of unimaginable tragedy. Blood stained the floors and walls. Classrooms and hallways were left frozen in the chaos of that day. The library, where so many lost their lives, became a symbol of the massacre's brutality. For the families of the victims, the days and weeks following were filled with unbearable pain. Funerals were held one after another as the community struggled to find ways to honor those taken too soon. Students who survived returned to school carrying a heavy burden, guilt, fear, and questions that had no easy answers. Some were plagued by the memory of friends who did not make it out alive, others haunted by the sheer randomness of the violence. In the weeks after the shooting, stories began to emerge about the victims' lives, their dreams, and the impact they had on those around them. One teacher, a woman who had tried to shield her students from the gunfire, was remembered as a hero, her bravery a beacon in the darkness. The victims were no longer just numbers. They became individuals with names, faces, and stories. The psychological toll on the students and community was immense. Many survivors exhibited signs of post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and depression. Schools across the nation faced the challenge of helping students cope with fear and uncertainty. Counselors were brought in, support groups formed, but the path to healing was slow and painful. Meanwhile, the nation grappled with the implications of the tragedy. Media coverage was intense, often graphic, forcing the public to confront the reality of school shootings in a way never before seen. The Columbine massacre sparked widespread debate over gun control laws, mental health services, and school safety measures. How had 2 teenagers been able to amass such deadly weapons? Could stricter laws have prevented this? Investigations uncovered disturbing details about Harris and Dylan Klebold's planning. Their writings revealed not just hatred and anger, but also a desire to inflict terror and destruction on a massive scale. The failed bombs might have prevented even greater loss of life. Yet, their capacity for violence raised questions about what signs had been missed and how to identify potential threats before it was too late. The tragedy also exposed the challenges facing law enforcement in responding to active shooter situations. The hesitation by some officers to enter the school immediately was later criticized, leading to changes in training and protocols designed to improve response times and coordination in future crises. Columbine became a turning point, a harsh awakening to the realities of gun violence in American schools. It forced policymakers, educators, parents, and communities to confront difficult questions about safety, responsibility, and prevention. For many, it was a call to action. for others, a reminder of the fragile line between peace and chaos. Above all, Columbine left a legacy of loss and resilience. The pain of that day would never fully disappear, but the courage of survivors, the dedication of first responders, and the determination to prevent future tragedies became a testament to the human spirit in the face of unimaginable darkness. The scars remain, but so does the hope that from such sorrow, change can arise. The Columbine massacre sent shockwaves through the United States, igniting a nationwide conversation that would shape the future of gun control, school security, and mental health awareness. In the days, months, and years that followed, the tragedy became a catalyst for change. Though progress was slow and often contested, lawmakers faced intense pressure to respond. Calls for stricter gun laws intensified, demanding limits on firearms sales, especially for semi-automatic weapons and high-capacity magazines. Some states enacted new regulations, while others resisted, highlighting the deep divisions in American society over the right to bear arms. Columbine was a stark reminder of the deadly consequences when guns fell into the hands of troubled youth. Schools across the country reevaluated their safety protocols. Many implemented measures such as locked doors during school hours, security cameras, and active shooter drills designed to prepare students and staff for the unthinkable. However, these changes also brought new challenges, balancing security with a nurturing environment and avoiding turning schools into fortress-like spaces. Mental health services received renewed attention. Experts and advocates emphasized the importance of early intervention, counseling, and support for students exhibiting signs of distress or social isolation. Yet, gaps in funding and access persisted, making it difficult for many young people to get the help they needed. The media played a complex role in the Columbine legacy. Coverage often focused on the perpetrators, their motives, and their backgrounds, sparking debates about the influence of violent media, bullying, and the warning signs of such attacks. At the same time, survivors and families fought to ensure the victims were remembered not just as statistics, but as individuals whose lives mattered deeply. In the years since Columbine, the country has witnessed numerous other school shootings, each reigniting debates and calls for reform. Columbine remains a grim benchmark, the day when America first confronted the reality that its schools were vulnerable to mass violence. The lessons learned continue to influence policies and preparedness today. For the survivors and families, healing has been a lifelong journey. Many have become advocates for gun control, mental health awareness, and violence prevention. Their voices carry the weight of loss, but also the hope that no other community should endure what Columbine did. The legacy of Columbine is complex and painful. It is a story of tragedy and horror, but also of resilience, courage, and the enduring fight for a safer future. As the nation continues to grapple with these issues, the memory of those lost to Columbine serves as a solemn reminder of the cost of violence and the urgent need to protect the most vulnerable among us. Though the scars run deep, Columbine's story remains a powerful call to action, to confront the root causes of such violence, to support those in need, and to build communities where safety and compassion prevail over fear and hatred.